All right, welcome John Hughes to Talk Commerce. And this is where you have to do the music part of it. I don't know if Madeline told you that you need to sing some music for the intro, like we're trying to intro.
She didn't know. I saw that you put Aaron on the spot last week. Yeah, what do you want me to do? Singing is not my.
Yeah,
you did. Yeah,
I just made something.
Yeah, all that's in my head now is do.
Perfect.
I'll have to do.
Good. Yeah. So just diving right in, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing, and then let's move on to the Hyva theme. Hyva.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm John. I am the technical director, or the equivalent would be CTO, normally at Fisheye. So we're about to say Magento solutions partner and an Adobe solutions partner, based over in the UK, in a small town called Shrewsbury in the Midlands of England. And yeah, I've been working with Magento now for nearly 10 years, not quite. Yeah, we are one of the probably few remaining kind of Magento only agencies at present, and one of our kind of key thing that we do is a little bit different to other agencies. We do a lot more ongoing work with clients. We don't do too many kind of full projects. We tend to try and work with merchants on a longer term, and help them grow their business. So that's us. Me personally, I almost ex-developer now. Still do a little bit of code every now and again. Obviously technical director now, so. I do a lot of solution architecture, solution specialist type stuff. Is my kind of day-to-day type stuff, type thing.
Great, thank you. So I know the buzz around Magento has been this new Hyva, however we want to say it, and that the traditional thought about Magento and Luma has been a 4-second load time, and
yes.
At some point everybody just accepted that, and I think it's unacceptable. So now there's some buzz around it, and I'm excited. And I saw your blog post, and I thought, hey, let's continue the conversation. So what prompted you to write it? What prompted you to kind of dive in and do that?
It was. So, like you said, there's a really big buzz around Hyva at the moment, and that buzz is I would say kind of mostly constrained to the developer side of the Magento ecosystem, and it's been something. So I get involved with the new projects that we do, and I've been talking to merchants to get involved in the kind of the sales and the post sales process and the requirements gathering and that side of things. So I've been talking to merchants about, hey, have you seen this? I think we should probably look at using this and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of realized that there isn't a great deal of merchant friendly information, and I also need something to kind of help. Not trying to use my words carefully. Not trying to convince merchants it's the right thing to go for. So I just felt like I kind of needed an article that can kind of take all the technical aspects and hopefully make it a bit easier to understand for everybody, whether you're technical or not. And that was kind of the aim.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So I know that it was very. I do like the blog post. You did break it down very well, and part of my goal in doing Talk Commerce is to connect some of the merchant experience with what happens with the developer experience. And I know one thing you pointed out in your blog article was the development time. So maybe just put in, let's talk about a few things that are going to speed up that development time and what a merchant should expect. And I think even more like, what should an agency expect of the developer when developing on top of this?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So in terms of time to market, speed of development, it's kind of the concept of Luma's been around obviously since the start of Magento 2, and Magento is modular, so that there's so many things there, and it's got a little bit bloated, and the layer of JavaScript in there doesn't help, and all the CSS, all the less that's there doesn't help either, and it's just when you're developing with Magento, I think a lot of developers probably agree half the battle is actually battling with the code that's there itself. And whereas with Hyva, you've got this much cleaner slate. It's a lot leaner. There's less code. So you might think that maybe there's more for you to do, but it's not quite that case. But it's just definitely a cleaner slate to work from. That just means you can do what you need to do faster without battling with the framework, basically. Yeah, and I think obviously some of the newer technologies we've got Alpine JS and Tailwind CSS. From what I've seen from the developers that have been working with it so far, it definitely seems to be. And I myself have done a little bit of work. It definitely is. Once you get used to it, it's obviously a small learning curve. Once you're used to it, it's definitely quicker. It's a lot quicker to work with than things like Knockout, for example, especially.
Okay. And I think some of the interesting things that you point out are just the raw performance of it as you load. Just to confirm, when you did the performance, you basically loaded the sample data, loaded Luma, and then loaded Hyva, and they did the comparison side by side, or was there any other differences beside that?
So these weren't an exact science. They are very rough. So I actually used Hoover's own demo site to run these tests against. They weren't local tests. These were live production tests, if you like. So Hoover's own demo theme that Willem and the team at InstantNet have hosted up there. That was run against their demo site, and then the other Luma demo was run, as I noted in my article, against a popular third-party extension vendor's demo site that has a couple of modules installed, but they're admin-based modules, so there shouldn't really be any impact to the storefront. So I won't name who that vendor is, because Luma's performance impact is not their responsibility. Right. But yeah, that was how I went about that. Yeah. So just use the Google PageSpeed to score the Lighthouse tool.
Yeah, and I think it was you think you had a score of 77 compared to 100 on the Hyva theme, and just for the merchants to understand, what does 100 mean on the page speed insights from Google? Is that pretty good?
So, you could say it's pretty good, yeah. 100 means there's literally nothing else you can really do to improve the site. Obviously, you can still make improvements, but yeah, you are ticking all the boxes that Google likes, that Google thinks your customers will like, and also as Google uses these as ranking factors to rank your site, it's obviously good from that point of view. And I just point out as well that, yeah, it's 77 for Luma. That's on desktop. On mobile, it's actually as low as 55. So mobile is where it really, really starts to kind of be impacted.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the mobile is even bigger. When you compare it to the PWA, have you looked at any of those performance differences?
I have. It's actually a follow-up article I want to write. Actually, at the moment, it's one of those areas I want to ask more people about and find out a little bit more. But PWA Studio and even View Storefront at the moment, the scores on mobile are only around 50, 60, and so that confuses me, because my understanding is that PWAs are first and foremost about speed and performance. Secondly, about obviously app-like features. But yeah, I did find that a little strange. I don't know if it's that Google has changed its obviously Core Web Vitals are coming in later this year, but I don't know if something else has changed in the last few months that means these platforms aren't scoring as well as they probably should be, or whether they've just not been paying attention. I don't know. But yeah, so as it stands, Hyva seems to be outperforming all the PWA solutions that I've come across.
Yeah, I can tell you that last year we participated with Magento in writing this PWA course, and I loaded it. I got it running, and I think we were loaded. I didn't actually get the page speed insight, or I did. I don't remember what it was, but I do remember that the actual page load times and like web page speed test were under 2 seconds, and I was very impressed with PWA at the time. Then I saw some of the new sites that I think Internet or what we're launching on Hyva, and they were under 1 second, which was I was blown away by those performance times. And I think what I'm most excited about on that is that, hey, now we're going to be able to compete against all these other sites that have been bragging about how fast they are. And I think the slowest of all those fast ones is still Shopify, even though Shopify just has a lot more marketing.
Yeah, 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 agreed.
I think so. Just maybe give us a little idea about complexity between the Hyva and the PWA as a developer.
So this is probably quite a contentious one. Again, I'm going to write more up about this, but I think it depends on where your background as a developer or as an agency is. So many or most Magento agencies, if they've been around for any length of time, so it could be the entire length of Magento or 5-10 years, predominantly we do PHP, and that's what we've done. And yes, we sprinkle a bit of JavaScript in that's needed, wherever it might be, checkout or anywhere else. And we've used whatever CSS tools have been available to us over the years. So originally, we had Sass back at the end of the Magento 1 time and less in Magento 2, and obviously again Sass with some of the kind of third-party themes like the Snowdog theme. But it's I'm struggling for the right words. We're PHP focused predominantly. We do have JavaScript editors, but we're not. I think the complexity for most Magento agencies and most developers have been working with Magento for any length of time is there's a PWA or a headless site built on the Jamstack architecture. It is a completely different way of doing things, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just you need a different type of developer, or a developer that is used to working purely in JavaScript or React or Vue or whatever else it is. And I think one of the nice thing about Hyva is it is stripped back and simple. Yes, I think people on the PWA side of the fence would obviously argue, and quite rightly, that you still need to learn some of the Magento concepts. You still need to learn layout XML. You still need to know what blocks and view models are, and how to work with HTML templates, and know a base level of PHP. But yeah, I think it's more about what developers are comfortable with. But I feel like Hyva has simplified what you need to do to output things on the front end for Magento 2, whereas PWA, it doesn't really feel any less complex than Luma. It's just a different way of doing things. PWAs are certainly better than Luma. It's a very different way of working.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that, when we're trying to hire new developers, we do sometimes come across developers that said, I did Magento, 3 or 4 years ago. Now all I do is React JS. So I'm not interested in working on Magento. And, I think Adobe has publicly said that their long-term roadmap is to decouple the front end completely, and that we're going to be looking most likely at something like a PWA. There probably will be a monolith front end built in, but I think their long-term solution is going to be a headless solution, similar to say something like commerce tools, where there isn't a built-in front end. There'll be something else that'll tack onto it.
And I'm not adverse to that future, and I don't think anyone at Hyva, I don't want to put words in Willem's or into Jeanette's mouth, but it's just, I think the reason the way it is just the simplicity of it. If you load up a Hyva site, there's literally about 5 or 6 requests on the page, and it's just so basic and simple to start from. Whereas again, with some of the PWA solutions at the moment, you look at the network requests and all the other, there's still a massive kind of page weight, even though it's loaded in a much better base for mobile devices. It's just the simplicity of it, and I think even in a completely decoupled kind of headless architecture, you can still have a Hyva-like front end. It doesn't necessarily have to be PHP based, but it's about creating something simple rather than something complex.
Yeah, exactly. I think that where this becomes most evident, especially when, traditional building of a Magento site, is when you have an external SEO agency that is an expert on everything e-commerce, and they come in and start telling you how many things you've done wrong when you've created your Magento site. And I think it's quite funny if you have, let's just say you've taken over a site where the client doesn't have a lot of money and they've just used Luma and they've modified Luma. And so then the SEO agency, who has no idea about Magento, comes along and says, all these things are wrong with your site. You need to correct this and this and this and this and this. And you have to have a reckoning with this said agency to say, well, this is the way Magento is, which is
Yeah, they're
unfortunate.
not.
But I agree that Hyva is definitely a huge leap forward.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, those conversations with merchants aren't fun. I've had some of those over the past few years, and it's kind of trying to trying to, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of back up the way Magento work, the way Magento's architected, and you just can't anymore. It's just like I said, like you opened up the start, the 4-second page load times. It's just not good enough. And yeah, you can add things like JavaScript bundling that people have been doing, but that's just adding another layer of complexity, another thing that you've got to maintain. And actually, those kind of SEO agencies, marketing agencies that give us those kind of scores or things we need to hit when you add something like JavaScript bundling, it might improve some of the scores, but then it'll actually detract from some of the other scores in terms of the fact that you're bundling everything up front, and then you've got a larger page rate. So you kind of you can improve it to a point, but it's just you can't improve it any further without ripping out start again, which is essentially what Hyva is.
Yeah. And I feel like some of this excitement is coming from the idea that, hey, when we were doing Magento 1, it was fairly fast, but there's a lot more flexibility, I felt like, especially in developing the front end. And let's just say the upgrade path seemed to be a little easier then. I mean, I think that it was also less complex. And
yep.
I know in your article, you do say, you do have an upgrade section where reducing some of the complexity that's built in automatically to Luma. And I feel like Luma was just built like, hey, let's just throw everything all on one big page, and just so we give all kinds of features, and then everybody just adopted that.
Yeah, essentially, the upgrade part is obviously, there's not too many sites live now, so it is one of those that we need to see as we go. Agencies like Internet that have launched their sites will probably have more feedback for us after the next round of upgrades. But it's that's the kind of, whilst it's still not fully decoupled here, it is decoupled in the fact that it's a clean break from the front end. So any upgrade to Magento, any upgrade to any Luma based files, I'm not going to impact your Hoover based theme. So therefore, it should, in theory, be a lot easier to upgrade, in the same way that if you're running PWA Studio or Vue Storefront or something like that, again, a Magento upgrade should be a lot quicker.
Yeah, and I think then as a merchant, let me rephrase that. As a merchant, would you expect that there'd be less errors and maybe a lower cost of ownership over time because of the fact that we're not relying on so many things in Luma?
Definitely, I think as you touched on, in terms of everything's thrown into Luma. Well, not everything's thrown into Hyva. There is a baseline that's been created to recreate most of the functionality, but also it's encouraged when building out Hyva themes. If you're not using something, so if you're not using the wish list, for example, you just take it out. And a lot of the problem with Luma and the way that Magento works by default is it is a modular system, and there are plenty of configuration options, but there are certain things you just can't turn off very easily. Yes, you can remove them by layout or whatever else, but because Hyva starts by removing everything, it's just a lot easier to kind of maintain, and you should just be managing the code for what your front end uses rather than having to manage the code for everything Magento can do, which is obviously a very large feature set.
Yeah. And then you do also highlight, we kind of spoke about this in the beginning, but time to market for a merchant. Have you done a full implementation and launch on yet?
We haven't yet. No, and that's partly, as I mentioned at the start. We as an agency, we mostly support merchants with existing sites. So we do have two Hoover theme projects ready to start in the next month or so, and they will both, which is exciting from our point of view, will be on what's now called Adobe Commerce. So yeah, we'll be jumping straight into Hoover, but trying to work with Commerce. So that should be quite fun.
All right, yeah, I'll be very interested. I think that because I think the original ones were done by some of the core team, maybe they had a little bit more experience in getting them done quick, but that also means that as soon as your developers are used to doing this in this way, things should happen a lot quicker. We have Yeah, we also have a number of sites that we're starting on Hyva. So I'm excited to see how that goes and kind of look back when we've launched and analyze some of that. I'm also excited to see what's coming out, and I don't know how I guess I haven't looked back to see how they are kind of tracking sites that have launched. And I know PWA Studio hasn't been great at telling us new sites coming out. And I would also say one thing Magento Adobe could work on is some incentives for a better adoption to this. If their long-term goal is PWA Studio, I don't feel like there's a lot of incentives for agencies to adopt PWA Studio right now, other
Sure.
than being one of the new people to try something new.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, in terms of Hoover, I think there's a showcase page on their website, so that has a list of all the sites that are known to have launched so far. So it's a useful list there if you want to check out those sites. Yeah, PWA, it's I don't know, it's a difficult one. I struggled with it. I was looking into it in more detail last year before Hoover was announced towards the end of the year. And I was trying to get more involved and try and find out where things are up to. So I felt like it was time we needed to look at the next thing. And it was just a bit strange in that people were still talking about how to make PWA Studio even extensible, because there wasn't really a proper way to extend components or parts of the front end. And for something that's been around for nearly 3 or 4 years now, I kind of felt like it would possibly have been further on than it is. It's not a criticism necessarily of anyone that's working on PWA Studio, because I know there's lots of talented people at Adobe, some of which I know that are working on it, but it just the pace of where it is does seem slow to me.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have Eric Irway on here in the next couple of weeks, so I'll grill him on it. I know that we did have a pre-call, and he says it's ready. It's rock and roll ready. So I am interested and excited to see more merchants coming out with that, and I do feel like the long-term approach of more of a modular, not a monolith architecture is sort of a solution that'll work, albeit it does add complexity to the solution. So, I don't know if it helps any on what a developer has to know. And I feel like the developers, if you want to be a holistic developer on Magento, you have to know a lot more than you needed to know in 2012 or whatever year that was exactly. That we first started. Even like looking back at Elasticsearch, I mean, that's something that you would be great to have. Now it's a must-have.
Yeah. So so the PWA solutions like PWA Studio, I feel like, you said a Magento developer does need to learn a lot of things, and I think the argument from the PWA side is well, it should be, you just need to be a React or a Vue developer. You don't necessarily need to know Magento, and I kind of understand that to a point, but I also, I guess I disagree personally, because I consider myself a solution specialist before anything else, before a developer or anything else. So I feel like a good developer knows the platform is my way of looking at it. You should know what Magento can do and what features it has and how you can configure things is important. So you're not just coding things that already exist or can just be turned on or turned off or that kind of thing. But I can kind of see where they're coming from in the you don't need to know Magento in order to build one of these applications.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into, on your blog article, you wrote developer availability. Does that mean that you could recruit sort of developers more quickly for doing front-end work on Magento?
I think all I was trying to get at with the developer availability part of the article was any Magento developer that's available already should, in theory, be able to work with Hyva with a minimal amount of learning. So you like I say, you've got to learn a bit of Alpine JS. You need to understand Tailwind, CSS, and just a little bit of the kind of Hoover specific stuff, but there's not too much of it. It's if you already know how to work with Magento, then you should be able to work on Hoover. Is kind of the point, and therefore all the developers available in the Magento ecosystem should already be able to work on Hoover.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then, so a developer experience, it should be similar to working in Luma, right? I mean, I think they would just have to know a little bit more about the different technologies, but just like you said, the availability of having a developer, the experience of the developer actually should be better.
Yes, again, the developer experience from everyone that's been working on it. So if the Hoover kind of community Slack channel, where most of the developers hang out and share tips and tricks and ask for help. The feedback so far is definitely the experience is much better. It's the site's much faster, so you're not waiting around for page loads to see things change. You're not battling with UI components and knockout or having to write less. It's a lot quicker in terms of. Well, I think Tailwind can be a bit of a kind of it's more of a UK phrase, but a bit of a Marmite thing. It's either you love it or you hate it, basically. But I think if you can give Tailwind CSS a chance, there's a different way to write CSS. It definitely, for me, I feel like it's a much quicker way to write styles.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I'm a love it, and I have all my Marmite here, and regularly eat Marmite. So 100% agree. You had mentioned about, or you had commented about making Luma faster, and I think your conclusion was no, you really can't, other than replacing it.
Yeah, so I touched on this earlier on when I said the JavaScript bundling. So it's a technique that's been within the Magento kind of ecosystem community for the last 2 or 3 years. So multiple people have tried to create things. Even Magento or Adobe tried to create a tool called Baylor that would kind of help you bundle your JavaScript and improve the performance. And eventually the almost de facto solution is something called MagePack. I can't remember the name of the developers of the agency that built that tool off the top of my head. But yeah, you can use this JavaScript bundling tool because the JavaScript's essentially what makes Luma slow apart from the bloat, and that's the part where your page speed really suffers, because that's where you get these time to interactive times of almost half a second on mobile. It's just because you're waiting for JavaScript to be found and loaded. So yeah, you can bundle things together, but you'll still only make a dent if it was taking almost 25, 30 seconds, and then you put bundling in, you'll still be looking at up to, it could be up to 15 seconds on a kind of a slower mobile connection like 3G, for example. And it's just again not good enough really. And yeah, without starting afresh, you're not going to get to where we need to be, where Hoover gets us to, which is kind of sub 2 or 3 seconds on mobile connections.
Yeah, I can definitely I can empathize with the experience on mobile, especially when we could travel before. I have T-Mobile, which gives us free roaming worldwide. What they don't tell you is that your free roaming is 2G. So land in the UK, get off the plane, and Google Maps hardly works because everything is like, at least the minimum now I feel is 3Gs. But yes. I have since upgraded to, I have 3G worldwide, but yeah, 3G is still a little bit slow. So I can imagine. Just from a small technical point, I'm always interested in cumulative layout shift. Cumulative layout shift.
Yep.
I think that's a little bit of a newer thing that Google has added, and
yes.
And I feel like Luma was way behind that was something that just got killed in the Luma theme, and a lot of themes. The CLS has been a big problem. And definitely, I mean, Hyva has solved that issue completely.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you can still easily break it, but yes, definitely has it. It's just again the way that Luma loads JavaScript, the way it looks for elements on the page and then implements things. That's where that kind of score is impacted, because things will just pop in and out. And this isn't necessarily a layout shift, but the key example I always point to when I kind of try and explain what's wrong with Luma is you can literally install Magento without any sample data, just completely blank instance of Magento. So there's almost nothing there. You load the home page or any page, and then at the top on the top right, there's a little bit where it'll take everything else to load. And after about 3, 4, 5 seconds, it'll say welcome, or if you were logged in as a customer, it will say, say welcome Brent, for example. And it's that little bit of JavaScript that's just checking whether the customer's logged in to then display a message. Takes up to 5 seconds, and that's the key kind of, for me, the thing about Luma that it just shows that it's not right, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. I had a very interesting interview earlier in the week with the SWOT, the site-wide analysis tool for Magento, which they are going to start building a lot of these things into the SWOT tool, and very excited about that. Barnett Hellman is the person, or was now the person, that has managed that project, and I'm very excited to see some of these new things that they're going to incorporate in that tool. Have you had a chance to use it?
We've had early runs of the tool. So this was just when you opened a support ticket with Adobe, and they presented you with a PDF essentially. I've not had a chance to properly play with the fully featured tool where you can actually just browse in your admin panel and see all the scores. But yeah, no, we've seen some of the output, and it's quite useful. There's some good suggestions in there. So yeah, it's definitely promising.
Yeah, I know one of the things we joked about was the customer's ability to load 1 gigabyte image files on their homepage and then complain to their agency that their site is slow.
Yeah, but there is that. It's still, you can build the fastest site in the world, even a site on Hyva, and merchants still need that level of training and knowledge sharing, so they've got the understanding that they need to be careful about what imagery they upload, or videos, or whatever else it is. If you're on Adobe Commerce, and you've got Page Builder at your disposal, literally the worst thing you can do is add a page builder map to your homepage or a key landing page. And I'm not saying you would, but if you add something like that to your homepage, load Google Maps, then it's just, the page speed of that page is going to be pretty negatively impacted. So you can easily break things. So it's all right to put a map on your contact page, but yeah, keep them away from your key revenue generating pages.
Right. Yeah. All right. So we have about 5-10 minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about Magento and the name.
Sure.
Like, okay, so it was Magento Enterprise Edition, then it turned into Magento Commerce Edition, and now it's just Adobe Commerce Edition. How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with it. I think I knew it's kind of inevitable. I mean, yes, I am. You can see I've got orange watch. I've got my orange Magento light that I probably feel like I need to turn off now. But it's one of those. It was always going to happen. I don't really mind too much. It's nice that they've kept the Magento open source name, if you like, branding for open source. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, I guess I kind of feel like it was inevitable. But yeah, I will always be a fan of orange, regardless of what Magento becomes, or what I do in future. But so that's ingrained in me for life now. So yeah, I think I'm just accepting of the fact that that's the way it is.
Yeah. I think Experience Manager was originally Apache Sling or something like that, or
okay.
So I know that they have a history of purchasing and doing some rebranding. However, Dreamweaver is still around, and that's an Adobe product that started as, was it Media something or another, and
Macromedia, I think. Yeah,
Macromedia,
yeah.
Still called Dreamweaver. Yeah. So I'm encouraged that there's still a Magento open source. And I'm also encouraged that Adobe has a track record of keeping open source around. So Experience Manager is an open source project that's on Git. There's a ton of Adobe open source projects on GitHub that you can access. And I don't think the doomsayers that say Magento is going to go away now is going to happen. I believe they're going to continue to maintain and add to the open source. However, I do believe there's going to be a larger split between some features and performance items that are going to be available for commerce versus open source. I think from a simply business standpoint, they're going to have to make a big differentiation between the two to make a reason for a merchant to go to Adobe Commerce.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, the two are very similar right now. And if you don't need B2B, I feel like B2B is the biggest value prop for a merchant right now. A lot of the other ones can be handled in modules. However, and there's always a big however on these, the cost of ownership, I think, at some point is going to be greater or equal on an open source project with the number of extensions and complexity as compared to a Magento or Adobe Commerce project that doesn't have all those extra extensions, and you're just getting the internal team doing updates.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, the biggest one we found outside of B2B has been Page Builder. I know there are plenty of external third-party CMS solutions that are great, but I do think merchants do like having their CMS in the same place. So you can connect a lot of external CMSs. But yeah, I think that between Page Builder and B2B, those are the two things that we find that where merchants tend to decide whether they want to be on commerce or open source. And I think there's I think it'll be next week at Adobe Summit, the announcement of the live search, I think it's called, the new search tool that they've been working on. That could be potentially quite a new again another feature that kind of adds to the value of commerce.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so just as we wrap things up here, tell us about your running. How's that going?
Not so well.
Did you get your Big Damn Run in, your virtual Big Damn Run this year?
I didn't, unfortunately. No, I didn't make it this year. So obviously I got into running through the Big Damn Run. So thank you for that, because it's obviously something that you and your team and your family even started. But yeah, actually, I struggled. I'm not the best at running long distances, and I realized that early last year, just as coronavirus was encapsulating, I actually have kind of like mild asthma, so I can't run very far. That's my problem. So I've been doing a lot more kind of fast walking or short kind of interval runs. So I need to do a bit more, especially now the sun's out in the UK a little bit more now. It's getting a bit warmer. I need to get back out there and do a bit more. But yeah, I've struggled to kind of get any medical help to see if I can improve my situation, because everyone's so busy with COVID and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, at some point I'll try and get back and do a bit more running, for definite.
All right. That's great. Yeah, we're hoping there's a 2022 Adobe Summit, and there will be a 2022 Big Damn Run, and that will be the 10th year.
Oh, wow.
This would have been the 9th year. This is 9 years ago we did our first Big Damn Run, and I think it was 9 years ago. Last weekend was the very first one. Wasn't called the Big Damn Run then. It was just, I don't know what it was called. We didn't call it anything. It was just a wish and a dream. Join a big group of people out in the desert, but it was sure fun. Yeah. And I'm hoping, I hope that this, that this energizes the Hyva theme and continues to energize our community. That's what's made Magento so unique. I know that Shopify doesn't have a similar community where people are so impassioned by it and work so hard contributing it to it, because you can't contribute to it. You can contribute to it in paid apps and maybe a theme or something, but it doesn't have the same feel and fun and all those fun things. I'm hoping to go back to the Unconference in Cologne in 2022. It'd be fantastic if it's held. They might do. I don't think it's going to happen in person this year, but who knows?
No, unlikely.
Maybe by October or November we have everybody's vaccinated. I don't know. We'll see what happens, right? It seems like things are dragging along very slowly, and what we thought would happen a year ago, and I remember thinking in March that November we'd all be back to normal, and no, it's not. We're a year later and things are still problems. So good. Well, this is, when we finish things out, I always give you a chance to do a shameless plug. So go ahead and tell us all about your agency, and give us a plug about whatever you want.
Sure. I'm not the best at shameless plugs. I probably covered most of it at the start. So yeah, I'll just reiterate. Yeah, we're a Adobe solutions partner based in the UK, and our USP, if you like, is that we try and work with merchants long term. We try and help them grow. We're not just put out one project and move on to the next. That's kind of the kind of area we like to focus on. And yeah, that probably is about as good a shameless plug as I'm going to do.
All right, that's fantastic, and thanks for bearing with me. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.